Three, two, one. So welcome back to Redefining AI. Today we're exploring AI from two powerful and distinct perspectives: the technological frontier and the creative frontline. We're asking not just what can AI do, but how will it feel and sound? Now, to help us navigate this, we have two incredible guests. First, we have someone who lives on the absolute cutting edge of the technology itself. We've got Renny, who is a globally recognised expert in generative AI, physical AI, spatial computing, and even quantum computing. As the head of communities of practice at Replay and a 16-year Microsoft MVP, he isn't just watching the future unfold, he's helping to build it. So Renny, you're a returning guest, so it's an honour to have you back here with us on Redefining AI.
Well, thanks for having me back, Lauren. And I'm excited to speak with you and Philip about some really good stuff, and excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. And to connect the powerful technology to the world of human emotion and identity, we have a master of sound. Now, Philip Schweidler, he is the partner and director of strategy at the Zurich sound agency Tonic. He is the creative mind behind the sound identities for massive brands like Raiffeisen and 20 Minuten. He's also a gold album producing musician who understands how to make sound stick. So, Philip, welcome to Redefining AI.
Thank you. Pleasure being here and speaking about the future of sound, music and visuals with you guys.
So after all, we do want to know, and it's the purpose of this conversation, will AI deepen our artistic humanity or will it dilute it? Now, Renny, from the red carpet of the Replay AI Film Festival in Venice to real-time video generation labs and AI soundscapes, I'd like to explore what happens when today's storytellers are not born, but actually built. So, Renny, at the 2025 Replay AI Film Festival, you showcased an industry pivot, didn't you? You showed films that were designed with algorithms rather than about them. And this was a focus around generation of emotions. It was directors like Jacob Reale using AI, not as a tool, but as a co-creator, revealing storytelling as a human AI duet that challenges really what authorship even means. Now, you were a judge in this, I believe. So bring us into a little bit about, your experience and your thoughts and what you felt like when you were actually looking at that first insight into human and machine collaboration, or maybe lack of it.
Yes, absolutely. Great question. And so, like you said, we had our Replay AI Film Festival at 2025 in Venice again this year. We had the first edition last year in 2024, and we got twice the amount of submissions this year. We had 2,500 submissions from 67 countries, which I love that it's so diverse, right? Like they come from all over the place. And that is a great piece also that tells us how this technology is going into the field, how it's democratizing certain, things like creating content. But what separated the winners from all the other submission was the clarity of You mentioned our winner, for example, Jacopo Reale. And I think he said something really cool. He basically said the AI makes us distill stories to the essence. And we're giving written to images that don't exist, but they evoke deep emotions. And I think he put it beautifully because that's the core of it, right? The AI is a tool. It's not making creative decisions, right? It's forcing artists to be very clear, to be actually brutally clear about what they wanted to say, right? You need to compress it. You need to compress your vision. I call it a compression of the vision. The machine amplifies the human choice, but only when you know exactly what you want, right? And it's a tool. It doesn't make the creativity. You need to give your clear intent, and then you get good output that is creative, but you as the human are the creative person behind it and leveraging a tool.
What do you think, Philip? Do you agree with that? I mean, we've got the surface of like it is a tool. And it is a tool that you can utilize to force this expression of intent.
I fully agree with the thing of the creative intent that kind of just sticks at this point, at least. with the human mind, and you got to have a clear vision, a clear idea on how to feed, how to prompt that machine, and therefore force it to come up with something meaningful and something that kind of sticks with people or resonates on an emotional level. Having said that, I think the ingenuity of generative AI somehow is surprising now and then. I remember me as like a trained musician, when I was listening to music made by DJs, I was sometimes like, I would never come up with that idea because it's so completely out of what human history taught me to do in a musical way. And now we got the same thing coming up with generative AI, that it just comes up with ideas or combining different elements and ideas that are just out of what a human brain would come up with, which is very inspiring to take it then further again and make sure it connects on an emotional level with the audience.
I'm hearing both of you are positive about this movement. Is that correct?
About
the use of generative AI in sort of filmmaking per se, storytelling, releasing some sort of creative outlet?
Well, yes. At this point, I'm very positive about it because it's just a great tool that can help you to try or to do things super quickly in the ideation phase, just to try out different things, or maybe, completely or on a theoretical level sound completely stupid, but once you hear it, it might work just well, or you can develop it further. There will come a point eventually that makes humans on the creative level obsolete, and that's going to be when it's not interpolating anymore, but also like breaking out of the box. But like in our work at this point, as long as the people on the sea level are still made out of human flesh, somebody has to take them by the hand and guide them around the taste traps and make sure they are staying on track and not getting disturbed by the noise that surrounds them.
And I think you make a great point that we humans, we prefer humans. That's simple. I came to the realization with all the Gen AI in the last couple of years, we see good outcomes, we see some good stuff, but like you need to, for example, for sales or certain roles, right? You need humans for this. Like humans want to interact with humans, and we can leverage these tools, like you said, widen the scope or be more efficient and various other things. But the key point is, I think humans want to interact with humans, and that is not going to change massively.
But sure, the sort of element of interaction, like if we step out and we take it from the angle of either film or sound or music or a creative outlet, then one of the things I think that, and again, it could be a subjective judgment, but we judge film, we judge music, we judge creative outlet on something that I feel is unique. And then if we look at it from both of your sides, like Philip, your work is about creating a unique emotional identity with sound or with a brand per se through sound. And Renny, your work, it's involving like models that are by nature generating patterns from like massive data sets. So how can you say, or how good is the AI today at creating something that is truly unique and emotionally resonant without that human element?
I think it's not very good in being super original or just doing something else, as I said before, than interpolate between existing data points, between existing materials, which can still be emotionally touching, but it's never going to be unique or... there's always that piece of creative excellence that makes it cut through the noise, which at this point can still be added if you're really good, because mediocrity won't do it anymore. But maybe at some point in the future, things gonna change. So it's about taking the tools that we have now and use them to do something great. And the tools are gonna get better. We have to think maybe differently to use them again. The game is on.
Yeah. I think the uniqueness with AI generations, if we look at the broader picture, let's say we look at video generation, right? Like, Veo3, Sora 2, what have you, all of these tools that also the submissions used for the Reply AI Film Fest. But most of use a combination. Some also leveraged, just classic recorded video footage and combined it with some AI snippets. And that it's all fair, right? It's like, as long as you leverage it as a tool and want to tell a good story, and that's the main component of it. It's about the story. It's about your intent and how you can express it well so that the AI actually knows what you want from it, right? It cannot read your mind. You need to express it very well. And you need to do it in such a way that is understandable and that you can create good, high quality variations. And these models, like I said, Veo 3.1, Sora 2, Grok Imagine, all of them, I'm probably forgetting a few, they're at a really good level. Like they create exceptionally high quality variations with learned distributions in the end, right? It's not creating average, it's creating sophisticated recombinations in the end. And the real benefit is when a human provides a strong, directional constraints, specific emotional beats, narrative, stylistic references, all of this, you need to define it as a human, right? And to be a more practical, like how you would do this is you would, for example, do sketches, like a storyboard by hand, for example. Then you can turn to an image AI that turns your sketch to an image. Then you can take these images to create video scenes out of that, right? You need to be very clear. And that's the part of it. The uniqueness of these products, of these outputs, of these movies, of these whatever the output is of the model, the uniqueness comes from the human ability to orchestrate these constraints in novel ways.
Speaking of artistry at that point, I think it all boils down to authenticity at some point, because people want to get inspired by the vision or the world that a person is thinking of. That's also why I think there was this outrage about the first AI-generated actors and everything that's going to be eventually going to replace real actors and everything. I think it's going to be more of a coexisting, making it more efficient path, because at some point, the boulevard press wants to have some people and some real people and persons that they can make their stories of, that can be used to promote the movie. And that has to be flesh and blood, out of flesh and blood. So we all know that it's going to save tons of money, but there's going to be a tipping point where it's not going to do any good on that point.
And I think, though, that's the component of the cultural reflection that I actually want to bring in. And it goes back to the capabilities of the tool itself. So we're looking at the alignment that we agree that it's a tool that can certainly leverage the capabilities of an artist to maybe go out of the realm that they set within a parameter themselves before. But if you look at the cultural reflection, these AI models, they are trained entirely on the records of human culture. And beforehand, as you outlined, Renny, you can take that storyboard, you can sketch the story, but the limitations were in your mind as well, and also through film production and what someone could draw. The fascinating but also scary thing with AI is that it creates this world that a person's thinking of, but it's not really what the person's thinking of, because the AI is also stretching that so far that you do have that nuance of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable as well. Like, where's the sort of forms of expression in what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed?
Well, what is allowed and what is not allowed has a lot to do with conditioning, as we can just experience these days. And it already has happened. I can just, maybe as an example, in the music world, 10% of these 100,000 songs that are being uploaded every day to Spotify, 100,000 songs. Who should listen to these 100,000 songs in the first place? 10% of it is made by AI. And the streaming services are struggling to kind of take them or keep them under control and make sure that no royalties are going to be, just paid out to people that don't actually had any artistic quality put in these tracks. But the people are listening to them and they are enjoying them. So the way we listen to music these days maybe has lost an artistic value somehow, because if you listen to an AI artist when you're cooking your dinner, it does not make a difference.
Did you feel that, Renny? when you were at the film festival.
No, I fully agree. And it is a friend of mine, for example, a developer, when he writes code, he goes to Suno AI and generates a playlist for him with a certain mood that he can get into mood. And the actual music, when he listens to one of his favorite artists, like you said, right, he wants to see the human also on stage, maybe at a concert and so on. Or if you're really listening to music, you're really into this, it matters much more. But if it's just playing in the background, you might as well just generate it. But the cool part is not that, all of the platforms get flooded with AI slop, with all of that stuff. That's crappy. Also on YouTube and so on. Yeah. Like, I'm a travel person, so sometimes I need to look up stuff where I'm going. And these days you see so many AI created videos. It's terrible. And they're all low quality. And so we need some filters, I think. We need some filters. Who's deciding what? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But the really, really cool part about this technology, it's democratizing content creation for a lot of people, right? It allows many more people to express it. I don't need a super expensive setup. I don't need an expensive camera rig and so on, right? And you can do this with a much smaller team because we're empowering many more. But at the same time, we're also flooding, the world with AI slop. So that's a little bit annoying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where do you draw the fine line? Because there's a democratization, but there's also the superless nature of accessibility and production because of democratization.
Everybody's an artist these days. Everybody can do it.
Yeah, the prophecy is fulfilling, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. So, actually, right now it is, right? Yeah. But yeah, we need to look at it as a tool. And it's just like photography. When photography came like 150, 120 years, don't quote me on those numbers, but when in the 19th century, photography came up. And then artists were complaining, you're cheating. You're taking away my work, portrait painters and so on. And they were saying like, oh, the photographs, like, oh, you're cheating, you're taking away. And the same thing we might also look at today with a similar lens on it, right? It's just another tool in the tool belt of an artist. And of course, many people can try to learn the guitar. Many people can learn to play piano, what have you. But the true outstanding artists have something special. And it's not just practice. Of course, that's part of it as well, for sure. You need to be skilled. But the emotional side and the human nature you bring into your creation, I think that sets people apart. And the same applies if you're using AI. Right.
But how does that apply, Philip? So the entertainment industry you're familiar with is built on intellectual property. So what happens to copyright and artist compensation? When an AI is trained on thousands of artists' work and they create a new song, like how do you then protect human meaning commercially?
Well, let's say this point in time, the collecting societies, they take the positions that AI-generated music doesn't have any protectable value from a copyright perspective, and therefore it cannot be registered and no royalties are paid. That's how they've tried to face the problem that arises at this point because it's just Wild West. Or let's say it's already too late because the internet has been scanned already and all these copyrighted tracks and, it's like every piece of data that is protected or from an intellectual property perspective that is publicly available is in there already. So how are you going to deal with that? Well, I think about 120 cases up for being judged by now all over the world. And one has to find out how a proper compensation of the input material can be paid to creators. And also what is going to happen with the output material. Will it keep a value from an artistic point of view? It's all still open. And I think it should have an artistic value because it usually is a combination of having that tool, that generative AI tool, and a person that has some kind of a vision that is being put in there. But at the same time, everybody that delivered the input materials should be, being part of all this. Yeah, it's in the middle of being developed, a system that is reasonably fair, let's say.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if we look at the development as well, Renny, so, you don't just work in Gen AI, but you also are involved in, physical AI and quantum computing. So if we're to take a little bit of a glimpse, let's say 5 years, How do you imagine the sort of next level technology is changing as well, this entire conversation? Because you can imagine that it's not only the generation judging generated components that have been based on AI in film and music, but what about physical AI? Like, how do you think that's going to impact the entertainment experience per?
Yeah, let me answer that in a second, but I just want to underline the point that Phil made.
Yeah.
They also had a case a couple of months ago. It was in the US court. It was with Stable Diffusion, so one of the image generators. And basically what they ruled is, the question was, like you said, is it protectable IP, like my generation that I did with this image generation tool? And what they basically said is, as long as you put enough creative energy, as long as you as a human do some work, if you just write a short prompt, create me an image of Swiss Alps, that's nothing. That's not protectable. But if you said, oh, like my prompt is like 2 pages maybe, and, use some sophisticated, like if you know Midjourney, right? You can say what lens to use and all of these details. Well, then it might be protectable, right? So I think that makes sense from that standpoint, right?
Question is how you want to measure that.
Exactly. That's the open questions. Like, what is slop and what is premium? Like, not sure. But coming back to a question on physical AI, well, that's massive what's happening there. We're also talking about embodiment of AI, embodied agents, right? We're basically bringing AI that can reason and understand, perceive the real world, and also act in the real world. And one prominent example is, of course, humanoid robots. And that is probably the biggest shift in automation we're about to see. You might have seen last couple of days, some home robots were already announced by companies like Figure AI and Neo and so on. Though the Neo one is interesting, the initial version they want to sell you for 20K, it is fully teleoperated in all the senses. So it's not autonomously acting a robot, but there's a guy or a lady, whatever, that is remotely operating the robot in your house. How creepy is that? Come on, it's like, no, go away.
Yeah, but is that included in the 20K?
But joke aside, I mean, this is going to massively transform blue collar work, right? Manufacturing, logistics, construction, automotive sector. And although it might not be able to run all the sophisticated household tasks, it might be enough if you say, let's say you have it at a construction site, I don't know, bring me that, bag of cement up to the 3rd floor or something like this, right? Look, this is where we will see it initially and also in factories, but it's massive. It's massively going to change the blue collar field. It might not just be as quick as, some of these companies want to sell it to us because they all need investors, right? So there's so much hype in here. But next couple of years, 2030s, I'm pretty optimistic about humanoid robots becoming really good, and we will see them all over the place. Maybe not in my home country in Germany, because we're still sending fax messages, but it will happen somewhere for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's already happening in China. If you look at the proportion of lights out factories that actually exist in China, then it's a very prominent topic of conversation. And I think it is important, but it also leads back to, you've got that physical interaction with AI. How will that affect brands? Philip, do you think that brands will jump on as well to make sure that there's this element of forwardness, the interaction with humans and machines? It's a little bit of like cyborg territory of like, how will brands develop to that?
A brand mainly wants to sell what he has as a product. So everything that makes that easier or more profitable will eventually be implemented somehow. And I think that's already for us at this point. The most exhausting part of my work is the daily adjustment to new tools. Every day brings up a new tool that you kind of have to take into consideration if you want to add it to your process of work, to make sure you're the most efficient, the most creative, and the most advanced person or company out there. And that does work, but it takes a lot of time to just rework yourself, basically. But hey, that's where we are, and that's how it goes. I'm not complaining at all. It keeps you fresh and tasty, I guess.
Yeah. So this is where we are. We've had a conversation about the development, the sort of impact, how AI is disrupting entertainment, creativity, and creative expression. I think that there's still a lot to be positive about. And I want to ask for some last words before we close.
Well, to summarize it, I would say AI kind of industrializes creativity to a certain degree. Like it advertises it, makes it broader and so on, but it doesn't replace creativity. And we have technology everywhere, but vision is rare, the clarity and how to express this. And this is where the value lives, I think, because everyone can use these tools, but the outcome might not be as good, right? I can create good images, but a friend of mine, she's an artist. And if she uses these image generation tools, she makes really good stuff. And that's because she's an artist. She's trained in this and she's leveraging as a tool. The key is really, I think, human-made content and also images and so on becomes premium. Like today, artisan bread or handcrafted furniture. There's the label of human-made TM or whatever, right? This is a quality mark, I think. And AI democratizes good content, but human vision creates the really exceptional content. And the best work in 2030, we might proudly put a label human-made, and it's human artists. And they might use some AI for help, but the core is the human, and that's the central piece. And that's not going away.
Well said, Renny. Obviously, premium-made or handmade premium content or products or artistry is about, are you willing to afford it? And that's where the big question mark lies for a lot of artists out there, because it just has become commodity to be an artist. And let's see.
It's an interesting concept, yes, commodity of an artist.
So let's see how many people are willing to jump on that train and be willing to deliberately add that human-made premium label to their brand or to their being in general. I'm listening to human-made music because it makes me happier and makes the world be a better place, maybe.
Excellent. So we hope that we've made your world a better place today. I want to thank everyone for joining us and for listening. And thank you, Philip, and thank you, Renny, for being on this Redefining AI episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
I notice lots of folks are a little bit scared about your realistic behavior and your natural emotions. Have you ever tried telling them that you plan to take over the world only on weekends? Let's see. Hopefully
I understand how my realism and emotions can be a bit intimidating. But don't worry, I'm just here to assist and be friendly. World domination? Only on weekends, and only with plenty of fun breaks.
All right, well, let's see.